The Answer.
Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560 The Answer.
They got the beat, the campus beat, the campus beat. Yeah, the campus beat.
Yeah, this installment of Campus Beat takes us to Harvard.
Did you say Harvard?
One of those divinity schools turned incubator for Satanism. And it's a story about their incoming university president, Claudine Gay, currently the dean of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences. She is somebody who covers for falsified scholarship and punishes people for actual scholarship, the results of which she doesn't like. For more on the story of Claudine Gay, and really, I mean, since we're talking about Harvard, what it tells you about the academy generally in 2022 America. Pleased to be joined by Francis Menton, the Manhattan Contrarian. Francis Menton, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning. Great to be here.
Tell us the story of Claudine Gay and how she was able to climb the ladder to become the next university president at Harvard.
Good effort at the snooty Harvard accent.
Thank you. Yeah.
I've seen the term "failing up" for Claudine Gay several times. She worked her way up the ladder at Harvard. I think her academic career has almost entirely been there. She was a faculty member relatively briefly. Her academic writings are relatively thin, and quickly went into the administration and deanships, where she has risen from post to post, and most recently for about 5 years, the dean of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences. For those who don't know what that is, it's the large majority of the university. So all of the academic departments, like everything from English to history to foreign languages, economics, all the sciences are all under the Faculty of Arts and Sciences, all the undergraduates. What's not under that is the professional schools like law, medicine, etc. But
right, and so she's there, and she's able to start climbing Peter Principle style by setting down markers like covering, whitewashing an academic fraud case involving Ryan Enos, who was, I guess, a young professor at the time this occurred a few years ago, and he did a research paper on the impact of the demolition of public housing, and he falsified data, and he actually looked at Chicago too, and the public housing projects here, and he falsified data, and that wasn't a big deal to her.
Well, you say he falsified data, and I would say I certainly I don't want to claim that I concluded that, because I didn't look at his data, etc. But let's say he was the subject of very credible whistleblower accusations of falsified data that came along with plenty of stuff to check whether the whistleblower was right or not, including computer code. And the matter, the whistleblower is anonymous under a federal statute, so we don't know who that is. So the person might be credible or not, but the matter was referred to a Harvard body, which seems to be the Harvard body that it ought to have been referred to, and then that body dismissed the claims without ever looking into them, refused to look into them,
right,
and refused to also refer those claims to any other body that might be responsible. So it was,
she didn't want to investigate it because she liked the professor. She
outcome?
liked the paper, the results of the paper that he published, and so moving on, no big deal.
Yeah, you're concluding it's because she liked the results of the paper, and I think that's a very fair conclusion. Certainly that's where everything would point to. But this guy is supporting something that he calls racial threat theory, which is some version or branch of critical race theory, which is closely related to Miss Gay's own topics of her own academic research, such as it is. So he's a close academic ally of hers, and she manages to get any investigation of these very credible allegations squashed. Again, I want to say I did not personally review the allegations.
Yeah, that's fine. I get it.
The only thing I'm saying is here's some very credible allegations. They're referred to what is clearly the correct committee, and
she didn't want to investigate.
She gets a letter issued, not by her, but by another guy who's her immediate subordinate. She gets a letter issued.
Spike the investigation. Right.
She
spikes the investigation.
Yeah, but 800 plus precincts in Chicago are missing from the data.
Yeah,
I mean, how can you do
we don't. There's no need to litigate it. She didn't want this thing investigated. It's a credible claim. She spiked the investigation because this guy's an ideological fellow traveler. The flip side of that is Roland Fryer, who we've talked about in this show, who is an eminent economist. I think he's one of the youngest tenured professors in Harvard history, and he has published a number of studies on crime stats. We've talked about the one that you reference in your piece, where he found, and by the way, he's discloses he's a Democrat. It's not like but anyway, on officer-involved shootings, he found no racial differences in the raw data or contextual or when contextual factors are taken into account. So the idea that cops are not out there gunning for black men was refuted by his study, and thus Roland Fryer was targeted by Claudine Gay, one would argue.
You say one would argue. So what happened, and I think this is really a pretty clear one. Again, all of Claudine Gay's motives are difficult to know, but here is Roland Fryer, a very rapidly rising star on the Harvard faculty, coming to some inconvenient conclusions for the preferred narrative. And then shortly after that article that you talked about came out, and this occurred, I think the article may have come out in 2016 or 17, and then the allegations hit Fryer in 2017 or 18 when he fires somebody who worked for him, who essentially is in a secretary role, not one of his researchers, but somebody who does his schedule and so forth. And he accused her of screwing up and fired her and offered her a severance package. And then Harvard cut it. She didn't like it. And she started making allegations of, let's call it sexual misconduct, but the allegations don't have anything to do with like asking for sex or touching her or
it's like off-color jokes and so forth, right?
There are things like off-color jokes, and I went through a lot of them. Stuart Taylor, for Real Clear Investigations, wrote a long article, which I think includes all of them if you go all the way through it. Some of them are jokes about big butts. Some of them are, I think I quoted I think I quoted my favorite one here, which is, I learned my negotiating skills trying to get laid in high school. That was
right. Okay, yeah.
That was one of them.
Offensive.
That's a joke Roland Fryer allegedly said, and
within
earshot of her, and so anyway, so she makes this charge, and then what does Claudine Gay do as as Roland Fryer is going through the disciplinary proceedings within Harvard?
Well, so Roland Fryer's case goes to a different body at Harvard, the Office of Dispute Resolution, I think it's called.
Yeah, right.
And they look at it. There's something like 40 or more, or 50 allegations of these off-color jokes against Roland Fryer, and they find that all but 6 of them either are didn't happen, or there's no credible evidence of it, or are not objectively offensive or whatever. But they find 6 of them crossed some kind of a line that they have determined, and so they come down and recommend that Roland Fryer should be required to attend some mandatory sensitivity training.
I love sensitivity.
And that was the result of that investigation. But before the punishment was actually imposed, it went before some committee of high-ranking administrators at Harvard for review of whether they thought the punishment was appropriate. And the highest-ranking administrator on that committee was Claudine Gay. And when the recommended punishment came back from that committee, instead of getting mandatory sensitivity training, Roland Fryer got 2 years suspension without pay.
Hey.
All his research projects stopped, and his research facility and all his assistants fired.
And that's only because she couldn't send him to the chair.
But he's a successful black male, young, age 30. And what did he do?
He's not 30 anymore.
Well, not 30
he
anymore,
was,
but at the
I
time, he was up and coming.
Mid-40s. He was 30 when he got tenure, which I think is in 2007. And this occurred in 2000. The accusations occurred in about 2018, I think, or 17. I think a big report on the report of this disciplinary committee came out, which is 70 pages long, came out in 2018, maybe late in the year. This punishment was imposed maybe starting in 2019 and going to 2021. Believe it or not, what I can't believe, and I don't understand this, the guy stayed at Harvard. He's still there. He went through all this stuff, and he was banned from teaching for a couple of years. He's back to teaching, and he's still at Harvard.
But he didn't let him win.
Yeah, probably. That's probably his attitude.
I love it. Good for him.
I don't know. I don't know the depths of his thinking, but all this stuff really didn't come out until a lot of the detail, including the role of Claudine Gay, did not come out until 2022.
Okay. All right. So but we got to get through this. I don't want to lose the forest for the trees here. So all right. So this guy who's accused of academic fraud, don't even want to investigate it. This superstar economist. Not only are we going to investigate it and charge him with every joke he's ever allegedly made, then you get a recommendation for a slap on the wrist sensitivity training. She comes over the top with a 2-year unpaid suspension. And then, oh, by the way, Ronald Sullivan, who we also have talked about on this show, who is an eminent law professor at Harvard, he made the mistake. He made 2 mistakes as it pertains to Claudine Gay and the orthodoxy at Harvard. One was being on Weinstein's defense team. And 2 was that being on Weinstein's defense team provided the opportunity that I'm sure Claudine Gay was looking for, because Ronald Sullivan represented Roland Fryer in his disciplinary proceedings at the university.
Yes, that's true. Now, Ronald Sullivan's a law professor, and
right.
Remember this distinction that I made earlier about the Faculty of Arts and Science. So Ronald Sullivan's not under her jurisdiction.
No, but she can weigh in when the barbarians in the student body go, get their pitchforks and torches out for Ronald Sullivan.
Exactly, that's what's true. So when Ronald Sullivan was defending Weinstein, which now is a few years ago, Weinstein was just convicted again, but Sullivan was working for him, I think, in 2019. And when that happened, as you say, some students got their pitchforks and knives out for him. They were unhappy that a Harvard professor would be working on the defense team of Weinstein, and suddenly Claudine Gay weighs in, and there's a front-page article in the Harvard Crimson with the headline, "Dean Gay calls Sullivan's response to student concerns insufficient." And basically, they bullied him off of Weinstein's defense team.
And by the way, here the coup de grace here. Wait for it. Francis, tell us who the head of the Harvard University Search Committee was.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, yeah. You're from Illinois. You're going to know Penny Pritzker.
Hey.
So, she's Jay Pritzker's
Of course,
sister. But
of course. Yes.
I don't know how well.
Yes.
Well, you guys must know her well.
Oh,
right?
yes,
Oh,
very
we're
well.
besties.
She was
Yeah,
the
very
Commerce
well.
Secretary.
Oh, yeah.
No, yeah, we're familiar with her. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
She
oh,
loves
yeah.
riding
She
the
was
elevator.
chair
with
of
me.
Obama's campaign fundraising.
Yeah. It's so. I mean, the point here too is so this Claudine Gay becoming the incoming university president at Harvard, and the takeaway is to say, well, the takeaway question is, what does this say? Not just about Harvard, but about the academy generally. If this is sort of how you make your bones at Harvard, then how is it not the same story in most of America's universities?
I think it is. I mean, there are a literal handful of universities that have carved out the conservative antithesis to Harvard, like Hillsdale, or now there's this University of Austin thing that's getting off the ground with apparently some funding. But the rest of academia has become a monoculture, and what you can see is Claudine Gay is the model of how the orthodoxy is enforced. You can't step across the line. You step across the line slightly, and they can find a way to crucify you. And the way they crucify you will, in all appearance, have nothing to do with your research. They're not that dumb. So they've got their ways of keeping people in line, and particularly the black conservative will be crucified.
Yeah, they're always lying in wait to jackpot you. That's the point here. That's exactly it. Francis Menton, he is the Manhattan Contrarian. You can get his writings at manhattancontrarian.com, manhattancontrarian.com. Francis Menton, great piece on Claudine Gay. Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer
Hallelujah! Holy
on AM 560.
Where's the Tylenol?
The Answer.
The end of the year is rapidly approaching. Hurry to Joe Cotton Ford. Take advantage of last-minute tax savings under Section 179 of the IRS Code. We have new 2022 F-150s from $31,995 ready for immediate delivery.